Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Brompton's Auctions based in the UK. We're going to have a look at their latest auction, which is Fine Musical Instruments. There's some very interesting stuff in this. Looks like there's about 200 lots or so quite a lot. So we're going to take a very quick overview of this auction. We're not going to look at everything. It's a sea of Italian stuff mainly, which is interesting, but we don't want to spend 2 hours doing a video, so we're just going to go over it and see if there's anything really interesting to look at. So this sale is finishing on the 27th of March. It's the 21st today. About 5 days left to go, so still a little while. I think that the buyer's premium is 20% for this, or 18% if you're the first person to bid and you end up winning, so exactly the same as Teresio. This is a UK based auction, so if you are buying from overseas or you're in Europe, then bear in mind import export fees, also CITES restrictions. You'll see a few things that have that on this. Before we get started, I'd just like to say, if you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, because it really does help me kind of do new content in the future. Please like and comment, because that also does help and it would be much appreciated. So anyway, without further ado, let's kind of crack on so that we're not doing a 10-hour video, although that can be enjoyable sometimes. So we're starting off with some bows here. We've got an English silver and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by W.E. Hill and Son. 3 to 5 is the estimate. We're on 2.8 already. Bit of a CITES nod there. A little bit of a condition report there. Some things you need to ask for more information on. Some stuff has a condition report, so it's all a bit different. A few other bows here. French silver mounted bows, a German silver mounted bow. But let's kind of look into this French nickel mounted violin bow by Charles Pacat, 8 to 10,000. It's got a Salcher and Sons certificate. Some of the US experts there. 2 bids already on 8,000. That's the certificate, so that's quite interesting. Good condition as well. I said we're just going to kind of go over this fairly loosely. Another French silver mounted Louis Morizot. More Hill bows here. Quite a few different kind of grades of the Hill bows here. See if there's anything else. Swiss mounted bow. Got another Pacat. Why not? French nickel mounted violin bow by Francois Pacat, 7 to 8,000. Another Salcher and Sons one there. We've got a bit of information here. Stick good with minor damage from refacing. Frog good but with some filler. Okay, that sounds a bit worrying. Wow, interesting. So someone's, don't know, looks like they've clamped it or something funny's gone on there with the head. A bit of damage. See that there's a bit of misalignment there with the button as well, some damage, and they're saying a bit of filler, so I think that one would definitely be worth inspecting in person, I'd say, because that looks like a fair bit of stuff going on there. Let's carry on. Some French bows there, German bow. Let's have a look at this section. English chased gold mounted bow by James Tubbs, one of the big kind of English bow makers, famous ones. 6 to 8, we've got 5.5 the current bid. Let's see what other stuff we have. Oh, it's quite a nice little button there, so very good. It's got a Raffin certificate, so it's a good certificate. Well, it's a good certificate for a French bow, but I guess their expertise transcends French bows. So stick good, handle showing wear, frog good but with one crack to the thumb projection. Can we see that? Here we go. Yeah, you can see that big crack right down the middle of the thumb projection there. I can speak a bit more about some of these condition things if we're not looking at every single lot, so that might be helpful. Feel free to also, if you want me to comment on anything specifically that I didn't in the video, I can try and comment on it after the fact if I have access to some of the pictures and things, or if there's enough requests from people, I could always do another video or a little kind of follow-up one. Happy to do that. French silver mounted bow after taught with the shield there. That's quite interesting. A few more French bows here. English bow, another French one there. More French bows. German, more French and German there. A few more French bows. Some quite nice bows in this auction. Let's have a look here. Loads more silver mounted French and a few kind of English ones here. Let's have a look at this bow here. French silver mounted violin bow by Jacques Lefleur, 10 to 15,000 there, no bids on that so far. Good throughout with some minor damage to handle underneath the frog. Later mounts. Okay. Can we see anything on there? Possibly not. So, not a massive amount to say about that one, to be honest. French silver mounted violin bow workshop of Eugene Sartre. That's a popular maker at the moment. Load more German bows, French bows. Let's see what else we've got here. French nickel mounted bow. Another. This is a bow possibly by Thomas Tubbs, actually. English silver mounted violin bow possibly by Thomas Tubbs, 5 to 6 is the estimate. No bids so far. Stick very good. Handle with much wear. Frog and button very good. Okay. It's quite an interesting looking bow, this, actually. Quite like it. Frog probably later. Yeah, it does look a little bit like it doesn't quite 100% fit, but I do quite like the aesthetics. Right, moving on a bit here. Oh, that's actually good to mention. Bow, an English gold-mounted violin bow by Jan Kudanowski, 2 to 3,000. No bids on that so far. I'd just like to always mention if I see a bow by Jan Kudanowski or a violin even. He is really, really interesting guy. Definitely worth meeting if you get the chance. And I think his stuff is really good quality. So let's go on to a few instruments here. An Italian violin by Giulio Degani, Venice, 1904, 20 to 30. Got one bid of 18 on that. Violin retains its original neck and fingerboard. Interesting. Sold with certificate and receipt of Thomas Smith, Birmingham. Interestingly, actually, that we were just speaking about, Jan Kudanowski used to work, I think he used to work in the workshop of Thomas Smith, making instruments and stuff. I think that's correct. Please pull me up if that is incorrect. So I am quite a big fan, actually, of the work of Degani, but a lot of people are not so keen. A bit of a Marmite maker, very deeply fluted scroll work, pronounced edge work, fluted F holes. Not everyone's cup of tea, but me personally, I really like it. You see these fluted F holes there. I'm a big fan. I like it. It's a nice looking instrument. There's a Viome, a Nicholas Viome. We can go past that. Let's actually have a look at this violin. Portuguese violin by Antonio Capella Espino, 1981. One of the fine Portuguese makers there. These instruments I am a fan of, actually. 4 to 6 estimate. We've got 10 bids and 4.8 on that. I mean, these are really, really well made instruments. Really, really nice. In general, they usually sound pretty good as well, in my experience. Obviously, every instrument's different, and sometimes maybe you get one which doesn't quite work as it should, but in general, I think really, really nicely made instruments and quite nice varnish. So I'm a fan. I think a good Capella family instrument, one of the various family members. I think that's a good instrument. Italian violin by Stefano Cogna. We'll go past that. Attributed to Emilio Rossi. Let's skip that for now. Right, Galliano. An Italian violin by Joseph Galliano, Naples, circa 1790. Current bid 40,000. Estimate 50 to 70. Certificate of Peter Biddulph, London expert there. 356 length to back. Violin chose the hand of his brother Antonio. Dendro report there. 1771 with a probable same tree match with a deaconet and matches many instruments by various members of the Galliano family. Well, that sounds pretty good then. So here it is. I think we're the zoom is a bit slow. Interesting scroll on that. Interesting head. Yeah, I think it's a curious looking instrument. Maybe not the finest looking example, but definitely interesting. Like I said, it's a sea of Italian violins in here. Maybe let's have a look at this one while we're here. An Italian violin by Ernesto Ferrara, 1928. 8 to 12 is the estimate. We've got 2 bids already on that. 355 length the back. Certificate of Florian Leonhard, big famous dealers in London. So I guess that's kind of good that it's got that dealer and expert, I might add. So that's probably useful for some people. Possible Italian violin here. Violin more possibly. I think we'll skip the possibly Italian violins for now. Maybe we'll skip that one. This is a really interesting violin. Half-size Italian violin by Eugenio Gagliazzi, Ascoli, 1854. Starting bids 1,000. No bids so far. Length of back 303. Repairs to table and back. Wormhole in peg box. Violin is featured in the book The Makers of Central Italy by Florian Leonhard. This is really nice looking violin for a child size, for a half-size violin. I think that's really quite pretty. I like this a lot actually. It's a really nice looking violin in my opinion. Don't often see kind of nice half sizes, so it's good to look at. But speaking of half size and Italian violins, you've got another one by Constantino Solani, Ascoli Piceno, circa 1920. This one's popular, 8 to 1,200 the estimate. We've got 8 bids on 1,100. Certificate of Dimitri Gindin, London-based expert there, 316. Length the back, sound post cracking table, repair 2 ribs. Interesting looking scroll there. Once again, nice looking violin there for a half size, so it's looking pretty good. Moving on to one which is a bit curious actually. I'll mention this, although maybe people might not like me mentioning it. This lot, a violin by William Wilkanowski, Brooklyn, New York, circa 1940, was the talk on many a forum because it was listed in this auction as a Raphael Callis with a certificate from kind of quite highly regarded expert Eric Blott, who I think is based in Cremona. Clearly he hadn't seen a Wilkanowski violin before, if that was a genuine Eric Blott certificate, because this is a very kind of common outline for the Wilkanowski violins, and they made quite a lot I think in their workshop there. Very kind of easy to tell. Some of these have this kind of W or fishtail, whatever you want to call it, on the back. They all have kind of similar wood choices, similar outline, like it's a very Wilkanowski thing. But anyway, so there was a misattribution. That's all been removed, obviously, because that's a little bit embarrassing as an expert for that. I think the certificate was from 2017. So apparently the owner and Bromptons have both agreed to kind of put this in the auction for charity, like offering aid release, I think, to Turkey and Syria, some aid relief there. But in any case, really interesting American maker actually, Wilkanowski. They're I think they're quite nice violins. 1,000 to 1,500 is a good fair estimate for that. So let's see how that goes. And you can see here the label Raphael Callis. So, but easy to make mistakes. It does happen. Like I said, if you know about American violins, you would recognize it straight away. But if you don't know about American violins, a lot of American violins can be very misleading. So stuff like that does happen. Some more, probably Paul Bailey there, an attribution to Viola, another violin attributed to. A good and interesting violin. Possibly Tyrol, circa 1770, 2 to 4 on that. We've got no bids so far. So 355. Repairs to table, ribs and back. Worm damage in back. Okay, interesting. Let's see what else we got here. Right, a fine French violin by Pierre Pacarel, Nice, circa 1840. think anything with the video symbol on the main listing has a video of it. No bids on this so far. Fingerboard with a Hill number there. Receipt from Hill. That's quite a nice looking violin here. Nice varnish. And there's the Hill receipt as well. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see. Another French violin, Circle of Violins there. This is an interesting one, an English violin by Remerus Leesom, London 1753. One bid of 3.5 on that, with a manuscript label, length of back 351. Some repairs, scroll possibly later, bearing indistinct brand. Violin currently in Baroque setup. Well, there you go. If you're a Baroque player, this could be a good buy. Not that many fine or nice violins in Baroque setup around, so that could be an interesting English violin there. More attributed kind of violins here, French violins. Let's have a look at this. A fine Italian violin by Paolo de Barbieri, Genoa 1924, 25 to 35, no bids. So let's have a look at that. Okay, strong F holes there, very strong kind of fluting on that. Let's see what else we got. An interesting violin. Well, I do like the word interesting, and I do like an interesting violin. So let's look at this. 4 to 60 estimate, starting bid 2,357. Interesting scroll on that, so I agree it's interesting. This waist is a bit pinched, a bit narrow, might have an effect on the kind of tonal qualities. A bit of a shame actually, because it's an interesting looking violin, and the scroll is pretty cool, but a bit of a pinched waist on that. Okay, so Irish violin by William Wilkinson, Dublin circa 1830. So this is, if you're familiar with Irish violins, you'll know Perry and Wilkinson. So this is the combination of the kind of the Perry lineage and William Wilkinson. So Thomas Perry and kind of various people that went into business together. But William Wilkinson, I think, married Perry's daughter or something like that. Did also make violins himself occasionally, not so common as the Perry and Wilkinson stuff, but definitely did. Inked purfling on that. Interesting in neck, probably original. It's in some kind of Baroque or classical setup. See a few possible worm holes there. Actually quite an interesting looking violin, that. Quite like that. So that's curious. Interesting things in this auction. Half size, another half size Italian violin, probably by Lorenzo Ventapane. Let's have a look. We don't see half size violins that often, so why not? Let's have a look at another one. This one does look a bit curious. Cool scroll on that. Another Tyrol violin. Right, now we do have an actual Ventapane here. Italian violin by Lorenzo Ventapane, Naples 1820, 40 to 50,000. Let's see what we've got here. See the wood there. 354. I think the Ventapane stuff is kind of always interesting looking. It's a bit curious. Outlines always a little bit kind of odd, a little bit non-standard to some of the other kind of makers of that period, but they've definitely got charm for sure. We've got a few other things. Everyone likes good Italian violin, don't they? An Italian violin by Francesco Bisolotti, Cremona 1984, 18 to 25. On that, got one bid of 16. So looks like quite a tidy looking instrument. Got another Capella here, 1978, so a little bit earlier than the other one we saw. This one has quite a few bids as well. Similar ish model. Nice looking varnish and very crisp work again. Like these always sell, always quite popular. More interesting violins here. Let's have a look at these next three. Are probably worth seeing. An Italian violin by Mino Farina, Milan 1910. 2 bids on that, 10,000. Dimitri Gindrin certificate on that. Next back 358. Not super feeling that one personally. Italian violin, first half of the 18th century after Niccolo Amati, 6 to 8, no bids on that. Violin retains its original neck and possibly its original boxwood pegs. Okay, 343. Wow, that's quite small length of back there. Some repairs and worm damage. Let's have a look at this a bit more closely. Yeah, I think that's an interesting looking violin. I quite like that. It's a little bit small, but definitely curious. Composite Italian violin, possibly Naples, 4 to 6, length of back 351. It's got a Sorsana label. That's interesting. Maker that you don't see that often. Curious slender F holes there. Definitely got some charm there. Interesting. The later Italian back and scroll. Okay. Slightly odd kind of outline on that one as well. Lots more kind of Italian violins going on here. Difficult to know where to turn, really. Italian violin, School of Storione Cremona, circa 1780. This is a pretty mad looking thing. Look at those F holes kind of close together. Definitely curious. Maybe a bit of a bridge too far on the F hole placement there. Sold with a J&A beer letter from 1957. Fairly high price on that one. Interesting violin, probably North Italy, second half of the 18th century. This, I think, is a bit more my kind of thing. Current bid 10, so that's an interesting one as well. Mario Garda, interesting maker. Let's see, an Italian violin, School of Vernaccia. Interesting Italian violin, circa 1810. Let's have a look at that. Dendro report from Peter Ratcliffe dates the latest ring at 1804. Strong cross matches with M.A. Bergonzi, Lorenzo Storioni, G.B. Cerruti, Tommaso Ballesteri, Nicola Bergonzi. 6 bids, 9,000 on that, 8 to 12. Cool looking scroll on that one. Length the back 350. Wow, that's a really nice back on that instrument. I have to remember this lot 90. It's a nice looking instrument. Let's see what else we've got here. Interesting violin, second half of the 18th century. Cesar Candy, Genoa. Some really interesting things here. Gaetano Garda. 3/4 size Italian violin by Stefano Scarampella, Mantua. So a whole load of craziness going on here. More kind of Italian violins there. English violin, Colin Nichols. Let's have a look at this. A fine Italian violin by Tommaso Erbler, Naples, 1782, 100 to 150,000. No bids on it so far. So sold with certificate of Peter Bidoff. Not the most exciting looking violin, but I'm sure it's pretty good from a playing kind of sound point of view. Some more English bows, Edward Tubbs there. A few German bows, a few French there. This is all viola bows. So maybe we should look at one viola bow. Let's look at this English silver mounted viola bow by Gordon Bailey. 800 to 1200. Stick good, handle with some wear, frog good with much case wear. Thumb projection may have been reshaped. Yep, looks like it might have done. Some violas here, so we should definitely look at the violas, because otherwise we'll get in trouble. It's always worth looking at a few violas. Very fine Italian viola by Gaetano Scarabotto, Parma, 1931. 50 to 70 is the estimate. We've got 45 starting bid. 404 length of back. Oh, big footnotes there. Instrument was previously owned by both Giuseppe and Giuliano Alessandri. Okay, interesting. There's a few pictures on that. These kind of early 20th century Italian instruments are really popular at the moment. Let's see what else we got here. A good viola attributed to Johann Ulrich Erbler, Prague, 1763. 10 to 15,000 on that. Pretty cool scroll. No bid so far. Stefano Cornia viola there. Giuseppe Ornati. Let's have a look at that. Very fine Italian viola by Giuseppe Ornati, Milan, 1952. 100 to 120,000 the estimate. 90,000 is the starting bid. 423 length of back. Okay, not seeing anything super exciting from that. Pretty crazy viola d'amore by Renato Scolavezza, Parma, 1958. That's kind of pretty mad looking. Be interesting to see if that sells. Let's see what else we got here. Interesting Italian viola by Raphael Trapani, Naples, circa 1830. Current bid 6,000. Interesting looking instrument here. Interesting decoration. Definitely a curious one. I feel like we've seen this one before in a previous auction. Some more Italian violas there. Good viola. Let's have a look at this one. Property of a musician, a very fine Italian viola by Pietro Scarabotto, Parma, 1951. 41 length of back there. This viola was bought directly from Pietro Scarabotto and has remained in the current owner's family since then. Okay, that's a really nice back. Actually, the whole choice of wood for this instrument is pretty stunning. If you look at that, that's very nice. See what else we got here. Mario Bedolci viola, French viola there. Cesar Topetti, another Naples viola. A whole load of really interesting stuff. Let's have a look at a Swedish viola. Why not? A Swedish viola by Daniel Wickstrom, Stockholm, 1797. I don't think it's that often we see like a really old 18th century Swedish instrument, let alone a viola. So I think that's worth having a look at. Starting bid's 2.6. It's got a restorer's label, 373. It's very small, so sound post crack in the table. It's a shame that it's such a small size, but interesting looking nevertheless. Let's see what else. Got a few bows here onto cello bows. Let's have a look at this French silver mounted cello bow by Nicolas Vorin, 8 to 10. It's the estimate. Got one bid on that. Filler to top of head, frog good, handle with minor wear. Let's see, can we see the filler? Kind of, possibly at the top. It's a little bit difficult to see in the pictures, but you can see that something funny has gone on there. Always check bow condition reports pretty thoroughly. I think it's a lot less obvious sometimes on bows than it is on instruments. A few other interesting bows here. This is interesting. An English silver mounted cello bow by Louis Panormo, 2 to 4. It's the estimate, 1800 to start. Stick good, but with knots and cracks around these. Handle with some wear. Frog with significant wear to some projection. Significant repaired cracks throughout. Okay, it's definitely needs a bit of TLC. Due to the length of the stick, there is a possibility that this bow was especially made at the request of a player. Alternatively, it may have been intended as a very large and heavy viola bow. Okay, so a bit of a kind of odd bow there, 91 grams. Curious. So a bit of an unusual one. Let's have a look at some of these cellos then. Property of an American institution, a very fine and rare cello by Joseph Panormo, London 1795, 60 to 80 on that, 40 to start. Peter Biddulph certificate. Let's have a look. It's a bit of an interesting outline on this cello. See what other cellos that we have. Luigi Ercole, a modern one that we see fair bit. Let's have a look at a few things. Let's have a look at an English cello here. A good, probably English, first half of the 19th century, 5 to 8. It's got current bid 2,000. Repairs to table, ribs and back, worm damage. Interesting looking cello there. And let's have a look at an English cello by Thomas Kennedy, circa 1820, 25 to 35. No bids on that so far. John Dilworth certificate from this year, well-known London expert on English instruments. Definitely an interesting one here. Just looking for some curious details. Some more Italian ones. German cello here. An English cello by James and Henry Banks, Salisbury, circa 1800. Nice to see instruments by the Banks family here. Another John Dilworth certificate here, so there you go. Just shows you that if it's an English instrument, a John Dilworth certificate is always good to have. Okay, well, more English cellos there. John Morrison, another interesting maker. Let's have a look at this one. An Italian cello, probably by Vincenzo Giorgio, Naples, circa 1840. Curious shape on that. Condition report available on request. Okay. Let's see what else might be worth looking at. We should probably have a look at the fine and rare Italian cello by Johannes Antonio Marchi, Bologna, 1777, 180 to 250,000 there. Starting bids 160, no bid so far. This instrument was previously owned and played by Italian cellist Aldo D'Amico. Okay. Nice looking scroll there. Interesting cello. Be interesting to see if this does sell. English cello, Lockie Hill School. This is definitely worth having a look here. An English cello by Barak Norman, London, circa 1720. More well known for viols usually, I believe. Cello is currently configured for Baroque period performance. 10 to 15 the estimate, 9.5 current or starting bid even. Repairs to table, ribs, back and peg box. Some post crack in the table with patch, some post patch in back. Okay, you can see the telltale kind of decoration of the Baroque Norman instruments that we see, and a bit of decoration on the back. You see it's had quite a bit of work done to it. But no doubt quite an interesting cello there. I think many historical performers would quite like to own a Baroque Norman cello in Baroque setups. That's interesting. A few other cellos here. There's Italian cello by Mario Girardi. Simon Andrew Forster cello. Really is a whole load of interesting, actually quite a crazy amount of cellos here, to be honest. Let's have a look at this Simon Andrew Forster cello. Look at a few pictures. Actually, that's curious. Actually, just looking at the curious nature of the scroll turns. Interesting looking cello. Some more contemporary cellos there. This one we should look at, actually. Property of a musician, a fine Austrian cello by Franz Xaver Schweigel, Vienna, 1833. 4 bids on that, 16,000. Some repairs on that. The work of Schweigel closely resembles that of Martin Stoss, who was his teacher and employer. Interesting F-holes on that. That's a really quite beautiful back for a cello. Really interesting looking. Nice varnish. Randomly a trumpet here. Now we're back onto violins here. Let's see. Fine Italian violin by Evasio Emilio Guerra, Turin, 1947. Certificate for Eric Blott, as we spoke about earlier. And some more kind of attributed instruments here. This is a very interesting violin. Italian violin by Antonio Mariani Pizarro, circa 1670. 80 to 100,000 the estimate, 70,000 starting bid. Dendro report 1652. Matches with a Marti, Guarneri, etc. Really interesting looking kind of instrument. Dimitri Gindin certificate. Crazy outline, crazy F-holes. Absolutely brilliant though. I think it looks amazing. Definitely quite like that a lot, but not enough to pay 70,000 for it though. A few more Italian violins here, and a Gragnani, Italian violin by Antonio Gragnani, Livorno, 1784. One of the kind of fairly well-known makers there. 60 to 90,000, 50 to start. Peter Biddulph certificate there as well. Not the most kind of super interesting looking instrument in my opinion, but a popular maker nevertheless. A few more kind of Italian instruments here. Maybe we'll look at this one here. An interesting violin, possibly Italian, circa 1760. 4,500 to start. Slightly curious looking. Sound post crack in the table. And moving on. Let's see. Here we go. An Italian violin by Carlo Antonio Testore, Milan, circa 1740. 40 to 50,000 the estimate. It's got a Rampel certificate. Later scroll, the varnish altered. Starting bids 35. That's unfortunate about the varnish. Yeah, looks like it's could have even possibly been kind of stripped in a few places, or something funny's gone on with it. That's a real shame. Some French violins. We should probably look at something which is not Italian. Fine French violin by Claude Pierret, Paris, 1725. 15 to 18,000. Length of back 362. 1 bid so far. The Pierret stuff is very nice, so good to see that. Let's see what else we can look at. Let's look at an English Baroque violin by Colin Wills, Somerset, 1985. Starting bids of 1,200. Good to see kind of a more contemporary instrument. Looks like it's pretty well made. Okay, we've got Violin, North Italy, 6 to 10,000. 3 bids on that so far, so that's popular. A really beautiful back on that, so I'm not surprised that that's popular. Nice looking instrument. A few other things here. Getting towards the end of the auction now. Let's have a look at this. An Italian violin, probably Genoa, circa 1790. 4 bids on that with a Grancino label. Interesting instrument there. A nice wood choice on that. Yeah, very curious. Ooh, I think we lost the something funny went on there. I think we're running out of battery, but carry on. Let's see what else we got. Fine and interesting Italian violin, probably Bologna, second half of the 18th century. 40 to 60,000, 35 to start. Dendro report 1761 and 1758. There's some Strad matches there. Once again, strong looking instrument there, beautiful kind of edge work there. Let's see what else we got here, getting towards the end here. Let's have a look at this. An Italian violin, possibly by a member of the Guarneri family, Cremona circa 1720, 1 bid on that, 12,000. Certificate of George A. Chanot, attributing it to Del Gesù. Interesting, okay. The back and ribs probably by another hand. The Italian scroll possibly by Tommaso Balistieri. Dendro report as well on that. Okay, interesting. Nice back. Let's see what else we've got here. Violin, probably Low Countries, late 18th century after Amati, 3 to 5. No bids on this so far. Some more attributed instruments here. An Italian violin, possibly Trieste, 1850. 1 bid on that, so definitely interesting looking thing. Another Tyrol violin. About a very interesting violin, North Italy, 1740. Dendro report there, 1737 to 1736, with the kind of big named makers on that as well. But clearly not able to determine who made it, otherwise that would have put the price up a lot more. French violins there, Nicolas Viome, or Italian. Let's look at these last two, I think, and then I think we're good. Property of a musician, a fine Italian violin by Gaetano Pasta, Brescia, circa 1710 to 20. 80 to 120,000 the estimate, 70 starting bid. Violin is currently configured for Baroque playing. Okay, wow. Sold with a certificate of Beers, Kent, 2023. That's a real Charles Beer and Peter Beer family, not the Beers shop. That's a really curious looking instrument there, and really, actually it's really good to see so many instruments in Baroque setup for sale. And I hope that a lot of them stay that way, because it is nice to have instruments in Baroque setup. So the last one we're going to look at, Property of a Lady, an important Italian violin by Francesco Ruggieri, Cremona, circa 1670, 250 to 350,000 here. 5 bids already on 250. It's been branded by W.E. Hills, length back 351, original certificate of W.E. Hill and Sons. Dendro report 1610 and 1628. Amati matches, Ruggieri, Guarneri, all of that kind of high-end stuff. So let's have a look at this kind of instrument. Really beautiful back on that instrument. Very, very lovely. Nice scroll. Yeah, in general, really nice instrument, really nice looking. So yeah, that is essentially the Brompton's catalogue. Even with skipping out a lot of things, we're already on 45 minutes, so it's really difficult to not look at everything, because everything is really interesting. And if you're looking for something yourself, I do recommend that you have a look at everything in the catalogue, even if you're not interested in it, because it's all about learning and you never know what you're going to find. So yeah, I definitely do recommend that you have a look at this if you get a chance, and yeah, just see what you think. Any questions, feel free to kind of ask, and I'll do my best. So yeah, the catalogue, I'll put a link to in the description for it. Check it out at your own time. Got a few days left, and thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Ciao. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.